You're listening to the Fearless Leadership Podcast, where we want to see you go further, faster. And now, here's your host, Dr. Jonathan Herron.
Hey everybody, welcome to the program. Jonathan Herron here with a special guest. Rob Little is our guest today. Let me tell you about Rob. He was named by the Detroit Free Press as the best up-and-coming comedian. He was selected by Budweiser as the real man of comedy. Last Comic Standing on NBC called him the happiest comic in America. And here's the thing, if you go to Rob's website at roblittle.com, he's got shout outs from Jimmy Fallon, Dana Carvey, Tracy Morgan.
But we're here to have a good time tonight, man. We're here to have fun, and I am a party guy, and I don't know, is this a party crowd? Because I'm kind of hoping. Yeah. Awesome. That's how I am too. And it's not even about the drinking for me. It's just about being around a lot of people. To me, that's the fun part, right? And if you're having a party, I'll come. I don't care. Girl, Pinterest party, I'll bring the crafts. I don't care. Tupperware party, let's blow the lid off this. I just went to my first search party. That is a weird party, man. Everybody was crying. They couldn't find this one guy. What? It's a weird party. Who invited the cops? This is weird. I didn't know we could bring our dog.
I feel like I should be saying I'm not worthy to be talking to this guy. But
I'm impressed. I'm impressed you even went and looked at that.
That's right. Welcome to the program, Rob. We're thrilled to have you here today.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
So you originally were working at IBM. How in the world did you become a comedian?
I think the better question is, how the heck did you become a computer programmer? Because I did not want to be that. Since I was 5 years old, you're from Michigan, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I grew up in Michigan as well, up like 2 hours north of Detroit, and we took a trip up to Mackinac Island one year, and I was 5 years old. I can remember it like it was yesterday, and I remember my parents we were real poor, so they could only afford one bed, and me and my sister slept on the floor, and they were up watching HBO late at night because we didn't get that at home, and they were watching George Carlin, and I'd never, ever heard him laugh that hard. And I just remember thinking, that's what I want to do. And literally from that point on, that's all I ever thought about. Even in my high school yearbook and my senior predictions, I said I was going to go to college, get my computer degree, and then I'm going to be the best comedian I can be. And that's exactly what I did. So I never thought, to be honest, I grew up in Penn County, Michigan. It's a very small town. And I never dreamed it would actually happen. You know, you have that dream, but it's a dream, and how many people actually follow their dreams? Not many. So to say I did it is just, that's a success right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So looking through your bio, it looks like you spent a little bit of time at the Second City Training Center.
Yeah.
I would love to just hear about that, about the improv comedy training that you received.
I love improv, and I was in improv. I was in the Second City in Detroit. So I was with the crew that Larry Campbell was with. I don't know if you know Larry. He was on the show According to Jim. He was Jim's sidekick. And then Mark Evan Jackson, who's in a million movies right now. Nobody knows him by name, but if you see in his face, you'd be like, oh, I know that guy. He always plays the straight guy. And then the biggest one who came out of Detroit, who we never ever imagined would be the biggest one, was Keegan-Michael Keyes, was out of our group. And so I was with all those guys. I was actually Larry Campbell's understudy, main stage understudy, and I had the option of becoming main stage, or I was fighting with that urge to go stand up full time. And so I thought, well, I love improv. I don't need I don't need the crew. I could just play with the crowd. And then once I saw crowd work and stuff like that, I thought, oh, I could do that and make it more original than a lot of the other kind of stand-ups do. And I think if you see my style, a lot of people would say, "Oh man, you're so good at working with a crew, with a audience. Like, do you have plants and stuff?" I get asked that all the time, and I'm like, "No." And they're like, "How do you think of that stuff so quick?" And I'm like, it's improv. We don't think. That's the thing. We just react. And anybody in improv gets it, but everybody that doesn't just thinks we're like it's something that we set up or that we've said 100 times before, and it's not. It's all made up as we go. So,
Yeah. One of the
yeah,
core concepts of improv is yes and.
right.
I'm just curious, how do you, as a stand-up comedian, how do you yes and, whether it's developing material or when you're on stage, what does that look like for you?
I have to remind myself that a lot, especially when I was actually working on stuff today, and that's the hardest part of this job is writing new material. Coming up with the stuff on stage, crazy easy. Somebody says something dumb, I can bounce off of them, no problem. But coming up with original, just because here's how I try to write my bits. I try to have a beginning and an end, and the middle I play. So I'll have like something where I'm like introducing the bit and have a couple jokes, but then I try to get something from the audience because I like making it more personal, you know? And that's the stuff I think people remember when they leave. They're like, I can't believe he brought that into it or whatever, you know? That's just my style. I know there's the guys that are definitely just joke writers, and I am 100% impressed with them men and women that are just so good at doing that and sticking to that. But I just can't. I can't do a script. I like playing, man.
What?
So yeah, I was in the Detroit. I'm very jealous you were in Chicago. I came to watch Chicago a few times, and man, that was the big dream because I was a huge Chris Farley fan. So I was all about kind of following his footsteps. And I don't know if you know this part, but I'll kind of just jump ahead for you. I was actually picked to be a new cast member on Saturday Night Live one year.
Really?
Yeah, it was the same year I was on. So the year after Last Comic Standing, they saw me on Last Comic Standing, and they came to my management and said, "Hey, does he do any characters?" And they're like, "Yeah," because I was just on the Best Damn Sports Show period for 7 years, so I did all their comedy sketches, and then I had Second City stuff and like my own sketches and stuff. And so I sent them a bunch of stuff, and they're like, "This is great." And they knew it was going to be a political year. So they said, "Does he have any political characters?" And I was like, "Yeah." No, I didn't have one. So I made up a bunch. And the one they liked was that year Fidel Castro was stepping down, and they didn't know who was going to take over for him. So I said his nephew Sar Castro was going to be, and everything was like, "I'm going to kill you." And they're like, "For real?" And I'm like, "No, I'm Sar Castro. Come on, I would not kill you, you know." And they came right back and said that's his first sketch on Saturday Night Live. And I was just like, I lost my mind, man. I was living in LA at the time. I think I'm moving to New York. And that was the year, because that was a political year. That was the year Sarah Palin came out with John McCain against Obama. And that was Tina Fey, Chris Parnell, Maya Rudolph, and Amy Poehler all stayed back. And they were supposed to leave that year. So nobody was new that year. And it was supposed to be me and three other dudes. And that was soul crushing, man. That was crushing because you think like your life is gonna change, and that's the next step of the dream, and from there on out, it was like it could have been. Who knows what could have happened after that? But man, if I could go back and shoot Sarah Palin in the face, I would do it because she ruined my life.
Well, that brings up an interesting question then. So a lot of our listeners deal with rejection. They deal with
Yeah.
letdowns, and that happens a lot when you're auditioning. How do you deal with rejection?
It happens all the time. Like you gotta just deal with it and move on. I mean, because you look forward to the next thing. Otherwise, it will eat you alive. Because if I did that, I mean, there'll be weeks where I'm like, oh my God, I am just having the best shows ever. And then the very next one is like, just what happened? And you just ate it. And you're like, what happened? What did I do? Because I feel like there's sometimes you feel invincible. Like I can get any crowd, right? But no, you can't. You're not gonna get them all. You're not gonna get them all, and that's life. You can't. It's just things happen. What are you gonna do? You got to move on. You look forward to the next one. You can't dwell on it. It hurts the first time. It hurts. It hurts when it happens. But sometimes now I'm at the point where I just go, it was them. Screw them. That wasn't me. They were not into it, and they just weren't into me, or they were just a crappy audience. I don't know. Sometimes people come and they want you, instead of coming like for us, in comedy, you're kind of discussing more about just actual speeches and stuff like that. For us, sometimes people come expecting you to make them laugh instead of coming to laugh. Do you know what I mean? So you got to like prove yourself to them. And it's like, I don't got to prove anything. You came to me. Let's just have fun. Right. So I go up there just with the attitude of like, I think it's going to be fun every time.
Does that help you like push through the fear of being up in front of an audience? Because I mean, I would just imagine. I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like to have a different audience each time. How do you
That's the
push
fun
through
part.
that? Yeah.
To me, that's the fun part because they've never heard your stuff.
Mm.
So to me, it's like I can't wait to tell it to them, you know? Um, this gets sound weird, but I've never ever been scared to get on stage.
Oh, wow.
Not even my first time. My first time I was over in the corner, I'm sitting there kind of going back and forth like this with my head in my hand and just kind of going back and forth. And I remember some friends coming up to me and they go, "Are you super nervous?" And I'm like, "No, I'm trying to memorize my stuff," you know? So I wasn't nervous. And it's actually, this is an amazing thing that happened the very, very first time on stage, March 8th, 1998, at Joey's Comedy Club in Livonia, Michigan, was my first time. And I'll never forget it because it's like a new birthday to me. But when I went up, I told my first joke and it got a laugh. And I'll never forget this feeling. It felt like somebody poured like warm paint over me. And I had this sense of calmness. And I was just like, this is what I'm doing the rest of my life. And I
Wow.
said, I just need to get good enough at this so I can quit my day job. And 2 years later, I'd quit and I was on the road full time.
So I would imagine that in the life of stand-up comedy, you have to kind of like market yourself. You have to kind of hustle to get your name out there, especially
Yeah.
at the beginning when you're new. What
Yeah.
did that look like for you in your journey?
Um, I, w- as a matter of fact, that's a great question because I actually had a buddy write a comedy book and one chapter is on marketing. And he said, follow Rob Little. He'll show you how to market.
Really?
So yeah. I don't know. I think to me, I don't mind selling myself. It's you gotta put yourself out there and know your worth, you know? Especially when it comes to like getting paid for what you're doing. Once you start getting to a certain point, like this just happened yesterday, actually. A guy was trying to book me for their venue here in Florida. I live in Florida now, and uh, I have a bare minimum what I'll go out for. And even then, I'd try not to book that. But this guy was really cool. So I said, I'll do it for this. And he was trying to get it for way less. And I was like, man, I really appreciate you. And he goes, well, that's why I wanted to talk to you on the phone because I wanted to explain what we have to go through. That's not that's not my problem. That's your problem. That's a you problem. My problem is I got to pay my bills too, buddy. So,
Hmm.
and then the funny thing was he came back today and they all gave me what I wanted.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. But I already wrote it off. I was like, it doesn't bother me if I get this or not. You got to kind of not care if you get it or not, too. If you don't get it, of course you care if you get it. You want to get your whatever your bookings or whatever your
Hmm.
people are looking to get, auditions, whatever. auditions. Like I lived in LA for 10 years, so I auditioned 1,000 times at least, and I'd say you get maybe 1% of them. You know, I did a
Wow.
ton. I mean, I did a ton of commercials. I probably did 30 some commercials and a couple TV shows and stuff like that. But I mean, there's way more rejection than there is getting it, you know? Um, when it comes to auditions, you just gotta, there's so many other factors that it could not even have been anything to do with you. It could have been something they were looking like. There was one time me and this one guy kept going up for the same auditions every time. We didn't look anything alike. Our personalities were completely different, but we were up for the same thing like three, four times. And I just kept going to, I go, why us? Like, what is it? What are we doing that is making us come together every time? But we could never figure it out. I don't know
So
why.
how do you approach, like, let's say you got a gig tonight and you're going to do a stand-up, you're going to be doing 2 hours at the State Theater in Bay City in just a couple weeks.
Let's go to 1 hour. I have an
Oh, okay, yeah, there we go.
opening.
But how do you psych yourself up, or how do you focus, or what goes through your mind before you go on stage? What does that look like?
You literally could literally say to me right now, Rob, you're up, and I'd just walk up and do like I don't need to be psyched up. I'm psyched just to become being a stand-up. You know, my psych came March 8th, 1998 when I
Hmm.
became one. And so I don't need to be psyched. It's what I love to do. Why do you need to be psyched to do what you love?
Hmm.
Just do it. You know? Um, there's times where you're more excited of other, like State Theater 100% is like hands down my number one favorite venue to perform at. And they got new owners now, and I'm glad that we worked together to get me rebooked. Um, and because I shot a special there, I was the very last show there when they closed.
Oh, really?
Very last show, and so I called my special last date at the State, and I thought it was gonna be my last time ever performing there. And so when this new guy bought it and right away contacted me, I was like, "Oh my God, this is awesome!" So yeah, those ones I get psyched up, but I don't. It's more of just like I can't wait to get out there and have
Mhm.
fun with the audience. You know.
So how do you said it a little bit earlier, you were working on new material. What does that process look like for you in
It's
developing new
so.
material?
It's the to me besides traveling, it's the hardest part of the gig. And I'm so bad. Like I try to force myself to sit down and write, and I can't. I'm not that guy. There's guys that can do that, and I'm so
Mhm.
jealous of them because they can just sit there and have ideas and play with them and play with them. For me, I come up with an idea and then I just go on stage and like
Mhm.
I'll just rehash it through my head like a million times.
Mhm.
Like you don't even when I'm up on stage, I'm not thinking about what I'm saying. I'm like 5 minutes ahead. You know,
Mhm.
that's another reason why I think people, improvers, are so fast on stage, is because we're not thinking what we're talking about right now. I'm already ahead. So that's what I try to do in new bits. Is like man, it's the hardest part. Like just coming up with a premise. And once I have the premise, then it's like, okay, gangbusters. What do I want to talk about this premise? Um, but trying to be original is very, very hard in
Oh,
this.
I bet.
There's a million comics and everything's been done and said. So you got to think of your own twist on it, you know? And I have to keep reminding myself, like I'm a very positive guy on stage, but sometimes I get into these rants and then I write it out as a rant and I'm like, then I read it back and I'm like, this isn't me. This isn't, this might be me in real life, bit, griping about something, but do I want to be that on stage? No, I don't. So I have to like go, what would I say on stage? How would I interpret this, you
Mm.
know? So that's the big dilemma for me.
How do you evaluate yourself then? Like, do you set up cameras and
Oh
watch
yeah.
playback? And oh
I
yeah.
record everything. Yeah, back in the day, it was like, remember, like I used to have one of those big VHS cameras, and I'd bring it to and I remember like all the local guys would be like, "Wow, Rob's got his own camera," like that was a big deal to have one of those. Now you just throw your phone up and put it on a tripod, and you're good. Um, So I try to record everything, especially like nowadays with posting. This is where I'm bad. I am not good about posting videos because I gotta re-edit them.
Mhm.
Then you gotta, put them to your phone because I do everything on my computer. So then you gotta transfer to your phone to post, so that they're the same um what do you call it, ratio or whatever it is to
Mhm.
like for TikTok and Instagram and all that crap. I am so jealous of guys that are so good at that. And I've tried hiring companies, but some of them just don't get it. They don't get what you're trying to do. Um, and I've had a few where I've tried hiring going, hey, find the funny in these. I just send them all my videos. Find
Mhm.
the funny in it, post them. And you see what they do, and you're like, oh, you don't know what you're doing. You know what I mean? They don't know. Plus, they don't know you. They don't know your style or what you think that should and shouldn't be posted.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, what advice would you give to public speakers, to people that, are up in front of crowds, whether they're a novice or they're a veteran? What can you tell us from comedy world that would be some good advice?
For somebody like trying to go up and give speeches? Is that
Yes,
what you
yeah.
mean?
Hmm.
Okay. I think one, those people out in the audience just want to be entertained. Whether you're giving a speech that's something but serious, you got to throw something in there just to kind of keep their attention, especially if it's going to be a dry speech. So try to be entertaining in it. And because then you'll find out who's listening too. You sneak something in that's kind of silly or funny along the way, then you keep their attention that way too. Um, that's why I think comedy and improv is such a good thing that people should take if they're going to be giving a lot of speeches. They should
Hmm.
definitely go take some improv classes. Um, just have fun with it, man. Like get up there. If you're nervous, you know, don't be looking and don't keep your head in your notes and all that stuff. Make eye contact. You keep eye contact with somebody, they can't look away, right? And if they
Hmm.
do look away, they're looking right back at you as soon as because they don't. That's what I do on stage. I look at everybody. I'm always looking at faces, always trying to keep their attention. It's weird just making eye contact with people will keep their attention. A lot of people don't think about that. Um, what else is there? There's if
Hey,
you're giving
how do you
speeches.
how do you deal with bombing? Like your material just does not connect.
Bombing, I don't bomb. Yeah, everybody.
Not you per se, but
Right. Everybody bombs, man. There's not a comic alive that hasn't bombed. And it happens. I mean, like I said, it can happen anytime. It doesn't matter where you're at in your career. Um, I mean, it's the same as what I said earlier. Basically, you got to move on. You can't dwell on it.
Mhm.
There's going to be more shows. There's going to be more speeches. There's whatever you got to do. There's going to be more. So you bomb, you bomb. What are you going to do? I've had some bad ones too, man. I've had some where, like the company has put me up in the hotel with them, and then I get up at the crack of dawn to get out of there before anybody sees me, and the other people are getting up too, and then I'm like, oh no. Like I had that happen one time, and I'm trying to leave before anybody even sees me, but they all saw me and nobody's talking to me, and I'm just like, I get it, whatever, what are you gonna do? It's life. You're gonna have your ups and downs. I mean, if you don't learn from it, I don't know. I mean, you've
Mhm.
never had something bad happen in your life? Yeah, we've all had it. What do you pick yourself up and move on? It
Is that
says
okay?
Dr. Jonathan. What are you a doctor of?
Oh, I know. It's in theology
Oh,
that's
really?
it makes
I'm
me tough
ordained.
part. Oh, are you really?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
I've done a ton of weddings, but you could pretty much ask almost every comedian that they're ordained,
Oh, I
all of them.
bet. Yeah, that makes
But
sense.
you probably went to school for it, right?
Yeah, yeah, I went to school for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I did it in 2 minutes, so I can do pretty much everything you can do. But
That's
I'm
awesome.
kidding. I'm
I love
kidding.
it. No, that's cool. That's cool.
I do that on stage. Like I do a bit about being ordained, and then occasionally I'll get a few dudes like you out in the audience, and of course, mess with them. Like, you would just, because it's like 6, 7 years you have to go to school, right?
Yep.
For all that? Yeah. All right. Wow. Good for you, man. All right.
Rob, before you go, tell me about your podcast.
So I have a podcast with another female comic who lives there in Michigan as well, Melissa Hager, and she's another one who you should look into. She's great. She's a super go-getter, and she's actually taken a bunch of classes on speech and stuff because she used to be a realtor before this too.
Cool.
So I'll give you her information too. But our podcast is called The Happy Hour Show. It's like the happy hour show.
Oh, I like that.
But it's hour, and it's all positivity. So we do, there's enough negative in the world, so we try to do all positive stuff, and we give away cash. We do, we take negative stories. We try to make them positive. We do all kinds of crazy things on there, but it's just a feel good show. So. And then we do a subscription service instead of putting it out there. So you go to the happyhourshow.com and all the information's there.
Sweet. I'll have to check that out. Sure.
Thanks for letting me say that, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Rob, for local listeners in the Great Lakes Bay region here, Rob is going to be live at the State Theater on February 1st, 2025. Tickets are available right now. If you just go to roblittle.com, you can get information there. And what else can we find on your website or online?
Man, I love that you said you read all the quotes from all those guys. A lot of them helped me out with Saturday Night Live, like the Dana Carvey and all those guys, Tracy Morgan. And I'd worked with all of them in the past, and they all just had such cool things to say, which really was awesome. But you could spend a week on my website. I have so much stuff on there, videos, cool pictures with celebrities, cool pictures with guests after shows, all my tour dates. There's so much. I used to be a web developer, so that's why I added all that.
Yeah.
Oh, I got tons of merch on there. Merch I created, all my albums are up there. I have 5 specials. I just released my 5th special from the State Theater last year, and so you can get all 5 of them on a USB card that is amazing. I got made up. I've never seen another comic with one of these. They look like credit cards, but they're
cool.
a USB, and they got all my specials on it, so it's pretty. There's a lot. There's a lot they could look. It's funny you brought that up too, because if I've dated a couple girls where I'm like, they're like, oh, I didn't know you were on that show. And I'm like, have you gone to my website? Like, if you had a website, I'd be all over it, researching you. But they look at it like you know what I get all the time? Oh, I didn't want to stalk you. That's why it's out there. That's why I put the website up. Why would I? That's not stalking. That's learning. That's getting information. You know what I mean? Which is another thing for people.
Dating advice with Rob Little here.
Right? Why would you put it up there if you didn't want people to see it?
Yeah.
So that's not,
absolutely.
I wouldn't consider that stalking. That's ridiculous.
So roblittle.com is where you want to go to learn more and to get some laughs in your diet for sure. Rob, thank you so much for being on the program today. This has been
thanks for having me. This was great.
Absolutely.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Fearless Leadership Podcast. Hey, if you found value in this conversation, help us inspire more leaders by leaving a 5-star review. It makes a world of difference. And don't forget to share this episode with someone who needs to hear it today. And of course, make sure you're subscribed so you're the first to know when new episodes drop. Looking for more insights and resources? Head over to fearlessleaders.net. Your next step toward bold, fearless leadership starts there.